I'll tell the story, but you can all cut it out though when you edit.
Off to see Frank and Beulah, catching up with them. In fact, it's been a while since we've had a chance to chat to them. It's exactly to see you.
First of all, let me just say to you that when we started in Kenilworth, I didn't have any philosophy. What did I know? I knew nothing,
Yes.
you know. Everything evolved as we went along. So the most natural thing for us to do when they said start a church was, okay, we'll start with children.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We just thought, well, if we start a children's club in this area, then maybe we can get to the parents.
Yes.
And so we had lots of adventures along the way. And we did things you can't do today. You know, we accosted kids on the streets and invited them to come to our club that we were going to start. And my other thing that I knew how to do was to go knocking on doors. I used to go down the streets knocking on doors. And because the kids were now coming to this club that there's no church, just this club, this arbitrary little meeting on a Friday afternoon. But when the kids saw me walking down the street, ready to knock on a door, they used to call me Rev.
Because this is you in your clerical collar at that
That's
time.
right.
Yeah.
They used to shout out, "Ma, Rev is coming!" So I used to introduce myself and then to tell them I'm the guy who, you know, who's running this children's club, and we're going to start a church soon. Would you be interested in coming? So eventually I had a showdown with some people because we wanted to rent the Claremont Service Centre, which seated more than twice what we could seat in the church.
In the church building, yeah.
I said, look, for 4 weeks we're going to go to the Claremont Civic Centre. I said, if you guys want to come and stay here in this church, you can do, but I'm going to be there and I'll preach to the empty chairs. From those first 4 weeks, we couldn't come home. The crowds increased. We had warnings from the traffic department, warnings from the fire department, warnings from the management. There were people hanging through the windows. They were causing traffic jams in the streets. And something happened as we moved into that civic centre.
Yeah.
Nothing special.
Just the Lord
Just
deciding
the
he was
Lord
going to bless
deciding
the
to bless that. And eventually we were told we had to vacate. And we didn't know what to do with all these hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds of people.
Around the turn of 93, 94, heading up to the elections, Chris Arney having been assassinated, all the terrible things that were happening in our country, the mood of tension and uncertainty, really from the time that P.W. Beulah had his stroke and moved aside and F.W. came in. And then of course in the midst of all of that, we had the attack on St. James.
I've often said to people that if someone had said to me, Frank Retief, the country's going to go to the elections next year, you've got 9 months, and you could do one thing to bring the gospel to the whole country before the elections took place, in the hope that God will do something, what would you do? And I would have done then what anyone else would have done. I would have brought the great Billy Graham to town, who was still preaching at that time. I would have hired every stadium, I would have hired every bus, every public venue, and I would have said to Billy Graham, Billy, give it your best shot. But instead of that, God just took us as a local church and put us through a fire and then put us on display with the message of forgiveness. And I think it became the biggest evangelistic event the country's ever seen, because there was no one in South Africa at that time who was known to be a Christian, publicly known to be a Christian, who was not asked by somebody, why did God let that happen to that church?
Yeah.
Which gave them a gospel opportunity.
Then the work was handed over to Ross and Lindy, who they'd been there for quite some time, hadn't they? I mean, Ross and Lindy had been part of the church family and part of the staff for
Ross had been my co-director there for 12 years.
Yes.
So he was greatly loved, still is.
Yes, indeed.
And a very gifted guy, and Lindy is just superb.
But Alison was helping you, Beulah, I think, with Bible studies
from
94, 95.
Coffee morning, and also later on with the students at GWC, when we got involved with them. She was helping me with all that.
I'm so grateful to God that you and Alison have come, because you really owned the place and you've taken it, and it's very obvious. Someone's taking responsibility for it. The word is constantly preached and taught.
One of the things that is just amazing about St. James, and I think that you'll find this in any Bible church, is that the Bible has been taught from day one, and it keeps being taught, because that is the only thing that we've got to give to people.
Yeah,
Amen to that.
There are huge social needs in our country, and it seems to me that there's an increasing move to again change the message of the gospel so that one actually feeds people and gives them education. And the difficulty is that, yes, they must be educated and they must be fed and given jobs, but that's not going to save them.
The days of church as a cultural experience, or going to church because it's the right thing to do, and obviously that's long off the agenda. And yet the extraordinary thing is that people, if they're invited, they still come. And the thing that gives me the greatest joy of all is that to this day, people are still being saved.
Yeah, exactly.
They're still becoming Christian.
Yeah, of course.
And it's wonderful.